In wake of the White Paper Revolution, which erupted as a result of public protests against extreme epidemic prevention policies in China, the Chinese Communist Party authorities have issued new prevention regulations in recent days, relaxing the requirements for containment and nucleic acid testing. Many cities have closed down their nucleic acid testing sites, but many public places still check for proof of testing, causing long lines at the only testing site available. In addition, despite the relaxation of nucleic acid testing, many provinces and cities are still building large-scale fangcang hospitals. This contradictory policy has created more confusion and public discontent. Also facing difficulties are the grassroots epidemic prevention staff, known as dabai. On the one hand, they are warned by their superiors that dynamic zeroing is an urgent matter that cannot tolerate any errors. On the other hand, they have to face the angry citizens that are protesting against the policy.
公民，我要让所有的执法人员要严格的遵守中华人民共和国的宪法，凡是违反宪法、违反科学，上门来要给我消杀，要杀我的宠物猫，要想把我拉到方舱，我坚决要告诉你们，宪法赋予我的权利。如果你们不执行，要强行的话，我告诉你，我有自卫的权利。你们上来，你们就当垫背的吧。我告诉你，我先给你宣讲这些宪法和科学。如果你们依然要暴力执法，依然要违反科学，做那些没有人性和没有天良的事情，那迎接你们的就是菜刀。
Recently, large and medium-sized cities such as Chengdu, Beijing, Shenzhen, and Chongqing have issued new rules on epidemic prevention, advising people not to take nucleic acid unless necessary, which is seen as a sign of gradual liberalization. However, so far, the epidemic is still raging on, and the zeroing policy has not been lifted. Therefore, many cities have not completely abandoned nucleic acid screenings, and many public places still require a 48-hour negative test result for entry. It's worth mentioning that many cities have changed from free nucleic acid tests to paid. Since last week, Beijing's public testing stations and many community testing stations have been closed. Many testing kiosks have been removed from their original locations. Since December 4th, Beijing has quickly restored these stations in an attempt to quell public anger that has spread throughout the city. Video shows long lines in Guangzhou as well. People complained that although testing was abolished in Guangzhou, everywhere they go still asks for 24-hour test results. They have to walk 3 kilometers to the nearby hospital for testing, which costs 13 yuan. On December 2nd, thousands of trucks were lined up in Mazhongshan of Gansu province, waiting to enter the city. The queue for testing was several kilometers long, and you couldn't enter unless you were tested. Due to the cold weather and lack of gas stations nearby, the drivers who had been in line for 2 days used up all the food they had and burned what they could to keep warm. But unfortunately, 2 truck drivers still died from the cold. Since the outbreak of the coronavirus, the chaos from nucleic acid testing has been repeatedly exposed. There are also nucleic acid testing organizations that falsify data, turning a negative test result into a positive one, which then leads to more people testing, all to rake in more profit. This is a video tweeted by a netizen. On December 4th, 2022, the Chongqing Mingtai Hospital discarded the collected nucleic acid samples and was discovered by the public in front of the hospital. The people suspected that the nucleic acid test is a scam, and the hospital or the CDC has the final say on whether results are negative or positive. Associated companies have been accused of making money off national disasters. On December 6, a search titled "The Gross Profit of Nucleic Acid Reagent Companies is Comparable to That of Maotai" and made it to the top of the Baidu search list in China. Guizhou Maotai is the highest gross profit listed company in China, with a gross profit margin of 91.5% in 2021. Sina Finance reported that Phoenix Web has done a statistic. The average gross margin of 15 listed companies in China involved in the nucleic acid testing business in the first 3 quarters of 2022 was 59.6%, and many of them had a gross margin of over 80%. In contrast, the gross margin of Chinese new energy vehicle enterprises is only about 10%. Among them, the highest gross profit was made by Wantai Biological, which is effectively controlled by China's richest man, Zhong Shanshan, with a gross profit margin of 89.57% in the first 3 quarters of 2022, close to that of Maotai. With a net worth of over $65 billion, Zhong remains the richest man in China on the 2022 Hurun Rich List. While many of the entrepreneurs on the list have seen their fortunes shrink over the past year, Zhong's fortune grew by over $9 billion last year, representing a 17% increase in his personal wealth. Data from stock trading software iFind shows that there are 109 listed companies related to coronavirus testing, and the total net profit of these companies for the whole year of 2021 is $10.62 billion. And the net profit in the first 3 quarters of this year exceeds that amount. According to China News Weekly, many companies have had their fates rewritten by the epidemic. Jiu'an Medical, which originally sold a series of blood pressure monitors and blood glucose meters, saw a 30 times year-on-year increase in revenue and a 319 times year-on-year increase in net profit in the first 3 quarters of this year. According to the company's announcement, this was mainly due to a significant increase in sales of test kits. The immense profit attracted many people to join the industry. According to Chinese media, since January 1st, 2020, more than 24,500 companies falling within the scope of medical testing have been registered. The cost of nucleic acid testing has dropped from 200 yuan per person to 15 to 20 yuan per person, which shows just how profitable these nucleic acid testing companies were initially. The huge profits of the nucleic acid industry have raised questions among the public. On November 27th, an article titled "Who is Zhang Shanshan, the owner of 35 nucleic acid companies?" was widely circulated on the Chinese web. The article questioned the person named Zhang Shanshan, who registered 35 testing companies throughout China, most of which were registered in recent months. In particular, wherever her company is located, there will be an outbreak. Even within a few days of registration, the entire local population would start nucleic acid testing, but the article was quickly removed. It was revealed that Zhang Shanshan is the sister of Xi Jinping's sister-in-law, Zhang Lanlan, but what is certain is that there is definitely collusion between the government and these businesses to make joint profits. It's strange that when we checked the Wikipedia entry for Zhang Lanlan on December 5th, her sister's name was still listed as Zhang Shanshan, but on December 6th, her sister's name was changed to unknown. The CCP's mouthpiece, People's Daily, published an opinion article on November 29th, titled "Nucleic Acid Chaos Continues, Epidemic Never Ends," attributing one of the reasons for the long-running epidemic to falsified test results. Some analysts say that by promoting a wave of criticism against nucleic acid testing companies, the CCP may be throwing out scapegoats to deflect the crisis and quell the rising anger of the public as they protest against the ban. On the other hand, the government is running out of money. The government is paying for the testing, which is free in most regions. The government's financial resources are heavily invested in the prevention and control of the epidemic. Within the 3 years of epidemic, the economic downturn and the decline of the real estate industry have led to a sharp drop in government revenue and a surge in debt. So some nucleic acid testing facilities are owed money by the government. Some of the listed companies involved in nucleic acid testing released financial statements for the first half of the year. Many have high accounts receivable, almost equal to the total revenue in the first half of the year. It's still uncertain as to whether these accounts will be eventually recovered. Not only that, for companies with lesser backgrounds, the authorities can waive the money owed and get a considerable amount of revenue to ease their financial crisis. There are several testing companies that have gone bankrupt as a result of government investigations. Not only are these companies that have made a fortune being used by the authorities, but the grassroots prevention workers, or dabai, have also become discarded pawns after being used. They are now forced to demand salaries by threatening to jump off buildings, just like the migrant workers used to do in the past. On December 6, a video circulating on the internet showed a group of Hubei dabai preparing to jump from a building and demanding their salaries. In the 3 years since the outbreak of the epidemic, the violent law enforcement process of the dabai has been repeatedly exposed across China. One of the most detestable is when dabai forcefully pull people from their homes. On December 3rd, a video of a woman being dragged out of her room to isolation was circulated on the internet. The video shows the woman staying in a hotel room when the door was kicked open, and several dabai blocked the entrance. The woman said she was wearing sleepwear and asked them not to come in, but the men still went in and forcibly pulled the woman out. Also in disarray are the fangcang hospitals, or cabin hospitals, a vital part in the profit chain from the epidemic. Despite the recent relaxation of prevention measures in many parts of the country, many provinces and municipalities are still actively planning for the construction of these cabin hospitals. Recently, it was announced that Shandong province is still in the process of building a $20 billion+ hospital. So why are local governments still spending so much money to build these fangcang hospitals when epidemic prevention has already almost exhausted their finances? In a video circulating on the internet on December 5th, a woman said, "There aren't even that many positive cases. The reason for the massive construction of fangcang hospitals all over the country is that for each new hospital, the central government offers a grant of $1 billion or several $100 million. The condition for applying for the grant is that the hospital requested by the local government must be fully occupied. Otherwise, no grant will be given." So, in order to get the money from the central government, corrupt officials from all over the country set a target for these hospitals. For every positive case accepted, they will receive a government subsidy of 3,500 yuan. However, since there aren't that many actual positive cases, a new profession called sheep farming was created. Basically, there's a group tasked with dragging people to the hospital, where meals and accommodation are covered for 5 days. In addition, to pass the inspection of higher-ups, these people will be taken to a designated nucleic acid testing facility to ensure that the test results come back positive. The woman said in order to profit off of fangcang hospitals, they need to fill it with people. But in order to do that, they will falsify the test results with positive cases. The mass closures, testings, and hospitals are all a part of this profit chain, and the citizens are simply victims tied to this chain, like lambs to the slaughter. Experts say the cabins provide little to no medical support and forcefully contain people who don't have any symptoms. This is essentially a concentration camp in disguise. The woman in the video said that everyone here was negative, but the government's excuse was simply that they were abnormal. On December 2nd, at the Songyuan Fangcang Hospital in Jilin Province, the man in the video said he was tested negative before he came in, but the community said he was tested positive and forced him to enter the Fangcang Hospital, and stopped giving him nucleic acid tests. 500 to 600 people were crowded into such a small space that many people started to have fevers, but received no medical treatment. This man questioned why they were locked together in this way. This child, not even 1 month old, was taken away to a Fangcang hospital in Shandong province. The child ended up getting a fever with no medical treatment, and the parents were going crazy. One netizen commented, "Dynamic zeroing is a self-deceiving scam. The liars have been lying for so long that they are even starting to believe the lie themselves, which is why they are investing in the construction of these cabin hospitals. People also said, as the economy gets worse and worse, more and more people will rise up, and the fangcang hospitals will soon become prisons and concentration camps. While part of the chaos in China's epidemic prevention is due to the collusion between government and business for profit, one of the main reasons is the release of confusing information about the virus. In the past 3 years since the outbreak, the CCP has adopted a strict zeroing policy and used its propaganda tools to promote the horror of COVID-19. This has led to frequent testing and constant switching between closures and reopening, which has seriously affected people's lives and devastated the economy. The Chinese authorities are now under pressure to loosen the blockade. The 10 new policies released on December 7th did not have any mention of dynamic zeroing, which seems to be a sign of relaxing policies. However, it's difficult for local officials to guess what's on the minds of the higher-ups, and they are afraid of losing their positions if they make a mistake, thus creating a confusing process during the implementation. In addition, under the CCP propaganda, the majority of the public is afraid of COVID-19, so we'll have to wait and see how they adapt after being completely liberalized. Whether or not this will put pressure on the healthcare system is unknown, and it could result in a new wave of confusion and chaos.